Sparks is such a simple card. When you play it, you can burn your opponent for 200 life points. That's it just does damage. No crazy special summoning, no negates, it's just a simple normal spell. So why was it so infamous? Well, it's cause it sucks. 200 life points was negligible damage even back then, and in the TCG regions, it was actually immediately power crept by Hinotama, the very next card in the set. Like, why would you even print this card? But because of that, the card is remembered even to this day. If you or your opponents are low in life points, you might hear someone say, Sparks for game, in order to joke that while no one plays it, it would actually be useful here to end the duel. So why bother talking about this card at all? Well, if you didn't already know, Rush Duels loves taking old cards and archetypes and making them relevant in the game. Just in the last set, Super War Lion, a classic ritual monster, got a whole deck built around it with retrains of some classic cards as well. But Sparks has been in Rush Duels for a while. While its damage did stay the same, it was actually given some support early on, allowing it to be recycled and played again to stack more damage. But it wouldn't be until the release of the Advanced Pack, Revenge Hearts, that we see Sparks truly shine as a unifying spell in this deck. Wanna know how? Well, stay tuned to find out. Hello everyone, my name is Protagonist, you can call me Protag, and I'm back with another episode of Rush Review. This is a series where I go over decks and themes to help introduce them to people who might want to learn about Rush, or for those who might want to try something new. The SPARKHEARTS girls are all cozy cottagecore witches that work together to help those in need. From gathering rare materials to protecting the crops, no job is too big or too small. So let's begin by introducing the members of this team. Starting off, we have the original member, SPARKHEARTS Girl. By discarding a level 4 monster from your hand, a face-up monster on your opponent's field loses 500 attack for the turn. Then you can set a Sparks and or Curtain of Sparks from your grave to your spell and trap zone. SPARKHEARTS and Nesh can be special summoned if you have Sparks or Curtain of Sparks in your grave. On the main phase that this card was normal or special summoned, you can mill 3 and then add a fire spellcaster from among the cards sent. However, you can't activate the effect of this card again this turn. SPARKHEARTS Makma needs you to shuffle either 2 fire spellcasters or 4 monsters from your grave into the deck. Then you can change the battle position of up to 2 face-up monsters on your field or your opponent's field. Then, if you have 10 or more cards in your deck, you can add up to 4 SPARKHEARTS Girl, Sparks, and or Curtain of Sparks from your grave to your hand. This is going to be your main card to play if you're trying to use Sparks for big damage. Each of these girls can become stronger after completing their quests, turning into powerful ritual monsters with explosive effects. SPARKHEARTS Passion Girl, after pitching a card from your hand or field to the graveyard, lets you destroy an opponent's card. Then, if you have Sparks or Curtain of Sparks in your grave, burn your opponent for 700 damage. But you can only activate this effect once this turn. By sending one other card from your hand to the grave, SPARKHEARTS Passion Anesh gains 800 attack for the turn. Then you can draw a card, but you can't activate this effect again this turn. SPARKHEARTS Passion Makma has the incredible continuous effect of buffing your Sparks to do 700 damage, and face-up SPARKHEARTS girls on your field gain 1300 attack. Also, face-up monsters on your opponent's field lose attack equal to the number of Sparks and Curtain of Sparks with different names in your grave times 400. This is honestly just such a good card. Not only that, but the debuff on your opponent and the buff to a SPARKHEARTS girl also stack. So, with 2 Passion Makma on the field and let's say a Sparks and Curtain of Sparks in your grave, your opponent's monsters will lose a total of 1600 attack, while your SPARKHEARTS girl on the field will gain 2600 attack, becoming a 3400 attack monster on the board. And finally, we have the SPARKHEARTS Familiar. On the turn that this card was normal summoned and there are 10 or more cards in the deck, you can choose 2 other cards in your hand or field and send them to the grave. Then, if SPARKHEARTS Girl, Sparks, or Curtain of Sparks is in your graveyard, you can draw 2 cards. However, for the rest of the turn, you can't attack with monsters except for fire spellcasters. This is just really nice draw power for the deck, and it's a low level, so you can use it as tribute fodder for a level 6 like Makma, or just as ritual material. As you can see, they're all pretty capable mages. So you can just leave it to the SPARKHEARTS. If you have 10 or more cards on your field during the turn that you normal summon this card, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add an excavated ritual spell to your hand. The rest go back to the bottom of the deck. However, if you have a Sparks or Curtain of Sparks in your graveyard, you can excavate 6 cards instead. Outside of that, we also have some of the townspeople that can make their request for the SPARKHEARTS. Fiarma, the ally Spark, on the turn that you normal summon this card, needs you to mill 1 and you can increase the level of this card by 3 for the turn. Then you can add a SPARKHEARTS Girl or I'm having trouble with my field being destroyed from your grave to your hand. But then you're locked into attacking with only fire spellcasters for the turn. Pite the ally Spark also needs you to mill 1 the turn that this card is normal summoned to increase this card's level by 3 for the turn. Then you can add a SPARKHEARTS Girl or a I Need Holy Water to ward off evil spirits from your grave to the hand. Once again, you can only attack with fire spellcasters for the rest of the turn. And in classic Rush tradition, everything becomes a card. So here's SPARKHEARTS Hat. On the turn that you normal summon this card, send 1 other card from your hand or field to the grave. Then you can add a fire spellcaster from your grave to the hand except a monster with 600 attack. But you can't activate this effect again for the turn. This is a really good card to retrieve your other powerful cards like Makma or even the ally Sparks. But with all the new monsters out of the way, we can start to delve into the spells and traps of the deck. The SPARKHEARTS girls all work at their agency, the SPARKHEARTS Studio. While this card is face up in the field zone, face up fire spellcasters on the field can't be destroyed by card effects. Also, face up level 6 or lower fire spellcasters on the field gain 400 attack. This does work both ways, so mirror matches might make this the first card you change out between games. But if not, this is an amazing spell to have on hand. But now we have the ritual spells. As mentioned before, these are represented by quests that are given by the ally Sparks. I'm having trouble with my fields being destroyed allows you to ritual summon either SPARKHEARTS Passion Girl or SPARKHEARTS Passion Makma by sending face-up fire spellcasters from your field to the grave as material whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the monster you ritual summon. Then you can destroy a face-up level 6 or lower beast or winged beast on your opponent's field. I Need Holy Water to ward off evil spirits lets you ritual summon SPARKHEARTS Passion Girl or SPARKHEARTS Passion Anesh by sending face-up fire spellcasters on your field to the grave as material whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the monster that you ritual summon. Then you can destroy a face-up level 6 or lower fiend or warrior on your opponent's field. Next up is Curtain of Sparks. This trap card activates when your opponent declares an attack and have a spellcaster in the grave. Then the attacking monster loses 500 attack until the end of the turn. While the reduction might not seem substantial, sometimes taking 500 less damage could be the difference between life and death. So with all the new cards out of the way, let's take a look at some of the key cards that we can add to help the SPARKHEARTS complete their quest. If we look at the available fire spellcasters, the roster it's not great. Like when half of the available monsters are normal monsters, it's just not looking good. But if you want to lean into the burn aspect of the deck, Bomber Jungler isn't the worst option. Send a ritual monster from the field to the grave and you can deal 1000 damage to your opponent. It's a fire spellcaster and honestly there could be a use case for it, but we'll just have to see. If you want some extra firepower, High Magic Double Acceleration is a fine choice. By shuffling 2 level 5 or higher spellcasters from your grave back into the deck, you can give a face-up spellcaster on your field attack equal to its original attack for the turn. So that's 6200 attack Passion Anesh, 5200 attack Passion Makma, 4000 attack Passion Girl, plus the 700 burn? Those are some really big numbers. Saturnitus's Orb is a good draw spell to have, especially when you have so many level 6 spellcasters. If you do have a level 6 spellcaster on the board, you can pitch a card and then you can draw 2. But while I personally prioritize draw spells, milling cards is an alternative that might be even better. You can basically run the suite of generic millers. Denticle, Lorlaimi, Jundi, Litchi, and Bati are all viable options. You'll just have to find the space for them. And of course, back row removal is also really nice if you can't afford to make Passion Girl. Magical Stream is your classic removal since as long as you have a spellcaster on the field, you can destroy an opponent's spell or trap card. Alright, so here's the deck list we're working with today. We have 3 copies of Anesh, 3 copies of Makma, only 2 SPARKHEARTS girls, 3 Leave It to the SPARKHEARTS, and a full playset of each of the ally Sparks. Now, for the next part, I am running 3 copies of Hat and 2 copies of Familiar. You can flip-flop on these depending on what you prioritize more. I like the Hat because I can bring back, some of the other SPARKHEARTS cards from the graveyard. But if you're worried about card draw or something like that, then you can probably just use SPARKHEARTS Familiar instead. For our Legend Monster, we are using Card Trooper. It's just really good at what it does. I don't need to explain why. 3 copies of Sparks, 2 Saturnitus's Orb. I will say the name correct eventually, but today is not that day. 1 copy of Magical Stream and 1 Pot of Greed. Next up, we have a full playset of each of the Ritual Monsters and only 1 copy of the Field Spell. I used to run 2, but I replaced 1 for the Magical Stream just because I realized that, the background removal is a little lacking. So I just took this instead, just in case You know, there was just something that I couldn't get rid of and would bypass the effects of SPARKHEARTS Studio. For the Legend Trap, I am running Storming Mirror Force. It's new, it's just really good at removing stuff, and you know, it's just a fun card to play. And finally, only 2 copies of Curtain of Sparks. Don't run 3, you're gonna brick and it's gonna suck. You at least get a solid amount of debuffs by combining, you know, the Curtain of Sparks with the Sparks, so that your Passion Magma can get a really strong debuff off if they're all in the graveyard. So yeah, that's just the right amount. For the extra deck, we are just running 3 copies of each ritual monster. That's really no big deal. And so yeah, that's really it. It's a very standard list in my opinion. I feel like you could play around with it a little bit more. But without further ado, let's jump into some games and see what we got. Our first game here is going to be against the new Great Moth deck. My opponent starts the turn off with Card Trooper to mill and draw 1. Then they play Swarming Basic Insect to pitch for Chaotic Love and draw 2 more. Petite Moth of Evolution activates its effect to mill 1 and recycle Petite Moth to hand. Then Scissor Hercules is special summoned and uses its effect to excavate and gets a Cocoon of Evolution. The Petite Moth gets tributed for Pulsating Cocoon and it uses its effect to fusion summon the perfectly ultimate Great Moth. The regular Cocoon is played and its effect fusion summons the Great Moth alternative. They then set 1 and pass the turn. On my turn, I set a trap and play Pite in hopes of milling a ritual, but it gets layer wired. Thankfully, I also have Firearma, but I don't mill anything good, so I tribute set and pass. They start off with tributing the Scissor Hercules for another Scissor Hercules to excavate again and once again get a Cocoon. They tribute set and attempt to attack through my monster, but Storming Mirror Force comes in clutch here to bounce both fusions. I finally have some plays as I Pot of Greed to draw 2 cards. Then I flip Magma and use Hat as tribute for Anesh. Anesh's effect activates and I get Leave It to the SPARKHEARTS. Magma's effect lets me flip over the face down, which was a Cocoon. I play Leave It to the SPARKHEARTS and get a I Need Holy Water to ward off evil spirits. I ritual summon using evil spirits and make a Passion Anesh, and play Familiar to then ritual summon Passion Magma using Field Being Destroyed. Anesh pitches 1 and I draw SPARKHEARTS Girl, which I then play since it gets buffed by Passion Magma, and that's enough to win the game. The next duel is against the Dreaded Monarchs. I start with the Familiar and pitch 2 to draw 2. This allowed me to special Anesh, who mills and gets me a Leave It to the SPARKHEARTS. I pitch that card though after activating Saturnius' Orb to draw 2 more cards. This gets me the field spell, which I activate right away. Then I am having trouble with my fields being destroyed to make a Passion Magma so I can deal 700 damage with Sparks. I end the turn with setting my spell card and pass. They start with Curse of the Rising Light to flip Magma face down, which does suck. Tribute Kaiser and Royal Wisdom Guards get tributed for Wilhel the Mega Monarch and I choose to destroy my back row. Then they play Aquila and Guards to deal some extra damage. However, Aquila attacking Magma flips her and turns her effect back on, but they still have Wilhel and the Guards to deal damage. On my turn, I Leave It to the SPARKHEARTS and get another ritual spell. Firearma mills 1 and gets her ritual spell back, and that lets me use it to make Passion Magma again. And because Aquila is a level 6 or lower wing beast, I can destroy it with the ritual secondary effect. Pite gets played and I net another ritual spell to make a Passion Girl. Passion Girl's effect lets me destroy Wilhel at the cost of discarding a card, but then I set my other spells and clear their board. My opponent uses Triumph to draw 2, discarding Lindorm and sending some cards back into the deck. Then they play Pot of Duality to get Invasion in hand and play Dealer, Aquila, and Drak. Drak brings back Lindorm and I choose my spells to be sent back. Dealer is tributed for the level 5 Lindorm, who uses its effect to debuff the Magma. Invasion is played to bring back the Wilhel and is summoned on top of the level 5. Aquila uses her effect here but can't destroy my Passion Girl due to Studio's effect. Wilhel then activates, and in hindsight I could have chosen my protected monsters, but I instead destroy my other spell. They then attack and clear my field. I play Pite and Hat to start off. Hat pitches Hat to get Anesh, and Pite doesn't give me anything. Fields is played to make Passion Girl, and Aquila gets destroyed again. Passion Girl activates to destroy Wilhel, and it's a clear shot to their life points. I do stunt a little here by playing Evil Spirits to make Passion Anesh and attack for game. This is just a really fun deck to play. The rituals are easy to deploy, with many ways of retrieving your rituals to make what you need. Personally, I like trying to get Passion Magma out as fast as possible, especially if you have the debuff active, cause it gets super annoying for opponents to deal with if they don't have removal. It kind of feels like how Berry Fresh Shy was really strong, but at least Passion Magma takes a few extra steps to get there. What's even worse though is if you pair this with the field spell, it gets harder to remove. But honestly, it's a versatile deck with many ways to deal with threats. They're just pretty vulnerable when you don't have the field spell active. In the future, I do hope that this deck gets more back row support. Having Curtain of Sparks be the only thematic trap, and not a good one at that, does feel a little bad to play. Some of the effect text on the card suggest that we could get new traps that could name change to Curtain of Sparks while in the grave, so I'm hoping that we get a good replacement for that. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you so very much for watching. I do have a lot planned, but I don't want to say them out loud and jinx them, so just stay tuned. This is Protagonist signing out for today, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace. Oh, and give Sparks an Overrush Rare.